Thank you for listening to the Redfield Arts Review. This is your announcer, Mary Ann Perry. Brought to you by MarkRedfieldArt.com. And now, your host, Mark Redfield.
I've known musician Bill Dickson for many, many years now and have had the good fortune of being able to work with him and collaborate on a number of different projects. Bill has mostly been my engineer on a couple of pieces. I remember my first recording of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol was engineered by Bill, and he did some instrumental music for it. And probably met him when I was doing some radio commercials and he was engineering those. And so we've worked together, for many, many, many years. And then recently, Bill Dickson musician, is now Bill Dickson author. And I was delighted when he asked me to do the audiobook of his new novel.
Terranian Sunrise is a book I started about 20 years ago, actually. I was a young philosophy student, and, in philosophy you kind of study social and moral dilemmas and things like that. And the main character is a guy that was about my age when I wrote the book, and now I kind of made him older as I got finished with the book to kind of go along with my age. But anyway, he's a young guy that is a scientist, and he developed holographic images and holographic persons, like interactive holographic beings, actually. He is, getting ready to start a new job. He has a sister. Her name is Charon, and the main character's name is Kalar, and their last name is Dean. It's D-I-E-N, so it's Kalar Dean and Charon Dean. So the scientist, Kalar, he starts working for a big company, and he develops holographic interactive beings. And he has the love of his life is Helen. They have some, interaction in the beginning of the book, and then they sort of part ways for her to follow her career and him to follow his career path. And as the story unfolds, there's a mysterious artifact that's found in the depths of the Bermuda Triangle, and Kalar is pulled in to try to decipher what this is all about. And one thing leads to another, and as a lot of stories go, the government gets involved, and it turns into sort of a military battle and a battle with Kalar's ego about being part of all that and the way that the world is changing and how he's grappling with that. So there's a lot of adventure, and there's a lot of romance, and so there's a lot of relationship stuff, and there's also a lot of personal development stuff, like overcoming personal struggles with. He's not as spiritual as his sister. His sister seems to be more in touch with spirit. Their grandfather was a great influence on both of their lives, and he developed he founded a new holistic church, and Charon kind of followed in his direction, under his leadership. There's a lot more of the story, and I don't want to give a lot away, but it's an adventure. It's a love story, an adventure, science fiction. Kind of has all that in there, and personal struggles and things like that too.
Where did the idea for the novel come from?
It was mainly me just dealing with the philosophical stuff that I was going through. I was studying ethics. I was studying philosophy of parapsychology. So I was studying a lot of different aspects of the thinking world, right? And writing music that goes along with that. And this book kind of came from my own musings about the nature of things, the nature of man, the nature of relationships, the role of man in society, and it kind of just, and of course I've just been a fan of science fiction all of my life. So this book, this first science fiction book, took about 20 years. but not steady 20 years writing. So as I said, I started writing it about 20 years ago, and I wrote only in the summer. I wrote in the summertime on the beach, and that's where I like to do my writing. So sitting on the beach, and I wrote the first part of the book, maybe the first 5 chapters, over the course of 2 summers. And then I lost that manuscript because I write it out by hand, just writing with pen on a tablet. And I lost it. So I was, despondent, but life moved on, and I, got married, had kids and all that stuff. And then about 10 years ago, I decided to try to pick up from where I thought I had left off. So I started writing again, and I tried to remember where I left off. I started writing again, and I wrote about 3 or 4 chapters, and then I found the original first half, or first quarter, and it turned out to be, of the book. So I had actually left off a little bit differently than I had remembered, but I started to put it together, merged the 2 parts so that they made sense, and kept writing, and then I finally finished the book 2018. So, and when I started writing the book, I didn't realize that it was going to be more than 1 book. When I first started writing, I was just writing, not even knowing if it would ever become a full book. It was just a little story. But the characters started to take a life of their own, started to write themselves, sort of, it felt like. And I got to a point at the end of 2018, or toward 2018, where I could just keep writing and writing, but I wanted to end it. I wanted to have a place to stop, to get something out into the world. So that's when it became a series. And so part 2 is called Midday on Mars, and that's what I'm working on right now. That will be released on my birthday, hopefully, in 2020, which is January 30th, 2020. That's the proposed release date of that one. And it will be at least 3 books, and depending on what the characters do and how the spirit moves me, we'll see how many more it goes.
It's fascinating, interesting stuff. And with your background, philosophy, I'm just curious, what are your favorite science fiction novels?
One is Orion. Of course, Star Wars, the whole Star Wars trilogy. I like a lot of Isaac Asimov writings and Ben Bova. So Orion was by Ben Bova.
And the reason I ask that is because, my reading, I've read classic science fiction, H.G. Wells, and mid-20th century, Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, and I, like most people, come to science fiction probably first through movies and television. And my favorite, I'm a Star Trek fan, and I'm a Star Wars fan. Sort of my age bracket is there, and they tend to be stories that are positive, people positive, fantasy. And I guess in general, I'm a fantasist, and I like fantasy more than I like hard science fiction. And I don't particularly like, although I appreciate dystopian science fiction. And I, of course, like you and so many, I'm sure, have read 1984 Orwell's. But I tend to like things that are adventure and like Star Trek, have a very positive message. What are your favorite science fiction movies or television shows? When
I started writing the book, I was entering my 3rd year as a philosophy student, and it, a lot of my songs came from my philosophical journey, and this book definitely came out of that. I was a philosophy major and a sociology minor, and of course a music major as well. So the book really did come out of my educational training and my love of action and science fiction and stuff like that. Star Trek, Star Wars, all of that, I've always liked. those movies, and also, like The Twilight Zone, things like that. I like stories that have a twist. I like stories that are deep in character development and deep in you not really knowing what's going to happen next. Having some surprises, some twists in it. I read a lot of Stephen King, and as far as character development, there's probably no one better than I know of, and so that's a big influence on my writing. As it became a series, I guess Star Wars is kind of the closest idea that that this is akin to, but it's certainly not the same. It's certainly its own thing. But just the history of a journey of a man. He's very much influenced by his grandfather, not really his father, but his grandfather is a deep influence in his life and his sister's life. So there is that similarity.
Tell me about your writing regimen. What do you do? I struggle. I try to write every day at the same time, and it doesn't always work. There's so much other work that I have to do. Are you able, with the kind of schedule you keep, you travel all over the country, you're doing different gigs as an audio engineer, you've got a family, these are the typical kinds of things. But what's your regimen? And you had mentioned that this is an idea that you had many years ago. So what was the process for you in writing this novel?
Well, as I said earlier, I started off writing on the beach, so it was only a summertime activity. And all my other, being a father, being a husband, being a musician, going to school, recording my CDs, all that took precedent over writing for the longest time, until very recently when this book became a real thing. When I knew that it was going to come to an end, I was actually going to have a book published. I got a little more serious about my regimen. So now, even when it's not summertime, I try to start off the morning writing, even if it's just a scene. I've got to get something down. But typically, I like to write on the beach. I like to go early before all the children get there and the noise of other tourists. I live in Bethany Beach, Delaware, so summer's not real long, but I can even go out when it's the off season. When it's the off season, and wear a sweatshirt and hang out and do my writing, and then I leave the nighttime for editing or transferring what I've written down by hand to the computer. I've tried dictating the book, but it's not. It doesn't flow as well. It flows best when I'm sitting and writing by pen and paper.
Are you working on a sequel to this? And I already know the answer to that, but I'm throwing the question out there because I'm curious where the story goes.
The second novel in the series takes place on Mars. Our main character, a couple of the main characters, Kalar and his lifetime girlfriend, pretty much it was his childhood girlfriend, and she returns as his girlfriend toward the end of the book again, and toward the end of book one. And they need to go to Mars, and I'm not going to tell you why, but they're on Mars, and his sister and some of the other main characters are back on Earth. And there's an intergalactic war starting, and they have other stuff to deal with. I can't give too much away until you read the first one. So, the sister character is developed much more in depth, and her love interest, her relationship is explored deeper, and some new characters come on the scene. So I don't want to get too far into that, but get through book one, and I want to leave you hanging for a little while. But it won't be too long before book two is out.
And Bill, finally, I want to ask you, what are you working on musically now? Where are you headed? What's new with music with you?
Right now, I'm trying to finish the CD that goes along with this book. So my plan is to have the CD out the same time book 2 is out. So that'll be January. I say CD, but these days everything's digital, so it will be an album. It will be a digital, it will be CDs, but also a digital album on iTunes, Amazon, and everywhere like that. And the songs will relate to the stories that live in the book. And it will also be a re-release of some of my other material that in a way relates to the story as well. And you'll hear a little bit of that. On this interview, you'll hear a little bit from the song called Terra, Terra, which is the root of Terranian, of course. And that song was written before the book ever was an idea. And that the song is about, it's about pollution, it's about climate change, it's about, and that was probably written in, like 1994 or something like that. And you'll hear an acoustic version of this song Terra that will be developed and recorded again with a full band and everything for the album that's coming out in January.
Upside down.
It's a recording from a CD release party of my 1996 CD, which was called In Time. So that song Terra will be on the new album, and the new album will be called Letters to Terra, and it will feature some songs from my In Our World CD. Pretty much all the music from the In Our World CD that I have, and plus maybe 5 other songs, including Terra. So that pretty much wraps up what I have to say. You will hear another song from the In Our World CD, which will be on the new Letters to Terra CD, and that's called Fossils. And I wrote that song when I thought I had a big recording contract, and I was, believing how I was dreaming how I was going to spend the money and everything. And for some reason, it turned out to be not the real deal. And my ideas of how to spend all this money dwindled away, and I realized that the only thing that will remain after I'm gone are the good things I do, or the people's lives I touch, and maybe my teeth. So that song is called Fossils, and it was birthed from my sister-in-law found a shark's tooth on a beach, and when I saw the shark's tooth and thought about the recording contract, it all kind of came together and became this song, Fossils. And the parentheses of that is Fossils, what does it matter? So that's about, what's our purpose a little bit.
Once upon a fairy tale, I was rich and you and me, we tossed coins down the wishing well, and our pop sunshine and living well. Oh, am I dreaming? I could spin yarns of gold into a magic world's unfold, and you would love me right as rain. So unselfish, no disdain, the reason, an economic high. What does it matter? You are you and I am I, but I'd feel better, more validated. Tell me why. Mirrors looking back at me, I'm so thin and you think you're fat. Someone took their life tonight. Oh, the pressures of living right seems weird. We're so insecure. What does it matter? You are you and I am I, but I'd feel better, more validated. Tell me why. got these teeth. Been here a million years. Time flows like the tide, and I know I can't hide. But does it matter? You are you and I am I, but I'd feel better, more validated. Tell me why.
And the other song that you'll hear is called The Letter, and that's the first track on the In Our World CD, and will also be probably the first track on the new Letters to Terra CD, with a little bit of a rearrangement on that one. So that's about sending a message to the rest of humanity to love each other. So.
Seen you like a fly on the wall, 6 eyes and a vengeance, a pestilence to all. Beelzebub is sitting next to me, laughing to himself. He's really quite pleased. And all at once, the rain came falling down, and the tears of God and angels all around. So send a letter to the world, out to all the boys and girls. The writing's on the wall. If we don't love society, society is bound to fall. See you like a gypsy on the pier, gazing in your crystal ball. The images are clear. Seems there is disaster up ahead. The end is coming faster. The needle's in the red. And all at once, the waves came rising up to save us all. We need a little love, so send a letter to the world, out to all the boys and girls. The writing's on the wall. If we
why we're here. We're here to help each other along and to spread love as much as we can. So that's kind of what I try to do. And I hope you enjoy the book. And I hope you enjoy the wonderful voice of Mark Redfield, who read the book. And I want to thank Mark Redfield and for coming down to my studio at the beach and recording the whole thing. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you for your time. And thank you for asking me to do the audiobook of your first novel. And I'm looking forward to doing the next one. So keep writing.
Thank you for listening to the Redfield Arts Review. Please come back again for our next show. The Redfield Arts Review and the original content of this program is copyright the Mark Redfield Company. Shopping for Explosives by Coconut Monkey Rocket. Licensed under Attribution Non-Commercial International License. All other content used by permission of the respective rights holders or used for educational and informational purposes. Original music, sound design, and engineering is by Jennifer Rouse. This is your announcer, Marianne Perry.
MarkRedfieldArt.com. Here's what just a few of today's art lovers are saying.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece.
Clap. Clap, clap. Ah. Now that's good work. The skulls, the bodies, you give it all such a glow. I don't know if it's art, but I like it.
There was a painter. He could paint an entire apartment in one afternoon, 2 coats!
So don't forget, MarkRedfieldArt.com. Cartoons for people.